Hi, this is Steve with Thresher Media Group. Welcome to When You're Ready to Listen. This podcast is dedicated to exploring the truth about God, things you may not have understood, may not have been taught, or quite frankly, had a very hard time believing. And since our entire relationship with God rests on believing, it is important we learn how to separate the truth from the many lies and fictions that abound within the religion of Christianity. So when you're ready to listen, tune in and discover a pathway to freedom, encouragement, life, and hope. Couple of quick reminders. Thresher Media Group is a 501c3 public charity, and we rely entirely on donations from our listeners. If the Spirit leads you, please support this ministry. It's easy to do. Just go to the website, threshermediagroup.com, and click the Donate tab in the header. In our last podcast, we discussed the implications of what we have learned, that the worship of God does not equal relationship with God. We also examined the design point and wisdom, which is the contrasting influence to those seductions of the harlot. Let's pick back up with the kings of the earth and the merchants of the earth. Episode 153, Revelation 18, verses 9 through 17. The kings of the earth, they will weep and lament. Revelation 18, 9 through 10. And the kings of the earth who have been committing acts of immorality and have been living sensuously with her will in the future weep and in the future choose to lament over her when they now may see the smoke of her burning, having been standing at a distance because of the fear of her torment, now saying, Woe, woe, this city, that great Babylon, that city, that mighty, the city, that great Babylon, the city, that mighty, for in 1 hour your judgment has come. Strenuous or sensuous? The code makes this passage difficult with the simultaneous use of both the present tense and the future tense addressing the harlot's demise, which is communicated from the perspective of the kings of the earth. But before we address the code, we are reminded that the kings of the earth have been committing acts of immorality with the harlot and living sensuously with her. Once again, we have that Greek word which means straining or strenuousness, translated as sensuously, or in some translations as luxuriously. Perhaps the translators were trying to creatively connect to the idea of a harlot and the wealth which the merchants who serve her make, but it kind of misses the point. It seems that the Spirit is making the point that these spiritual entities joined in her immorality. They let religion rule in their human territories, and they did it by force or strength. Just as the harlot has forced her way into the hearts, minds, souls, and strength of humanity, so too the kings of the earth have forced their own religious proclivities. Impact of the kings of the earth in the physical realm. Because of the indulgence of the kings of the earth and their fornicating with the harlot, their human counterparts follow suit and similarly indulge in the passionate immorality of this woman. Historically, we have seen this dynamic in the way governments and religion have been so intertwined, many of which still are. For instance, with the Catholic Church, these spiritual kings have led their earthly counterparts to commit their lives and their countries to the harlot. For example, in such countries as Italy, France, Spain, Portugal, Luxembourg, Ireland, Poland, Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, Colombia, Venezuela, Peru, the Philippines, Cuba, Chile, Bolivia, Nicaragua, Costa Rica, Ecuador, Paraguay, and many others identify as Catholic nations, as a community of believers in Jesus, the one who died on the cross for the sins of humanity and who was resurrected. For the longest time, the Catholic Church ruthlessly ruled these nations and their people as if she was their only sovereign. Without question, the word of the Pope was the law of the land. The same dynamic occurred with the Church of England, as well as with the Church of Scotland. In fact, the Church of England and the Church of Scotland functioned as legal ruling establishments that had jurisdiction over the affairs of the people along with the state. Even today, the King of or Queen of England holds the title of Supreme Governor of the Church of England, and many of the senior bishops of the church have positions in the House of Lords in Parliament. The church and the government are still so intertwined, although less in this century than in times past, that the crown is the final voice of approval for any new church legislation. In the United States, the structure is a bit different, but the influence is still felt nonetheless. The link between religion and politics, or the kings of the earth, comes through lobbying organizations that exert great influence on American politics through their representation of many religious denominations and systems. Religious institutions spend a lot of money to ensure that senators and members of the House vote their interests on legislation. They also attempt to exert influence on administrative and judicial decisions. They are a highly active lobby, and they have the ears and pocketbooks of many of our rulers. 60% of these religious lobbyists represent the interests of Catholics, evangelical Christianity, Jews, and Protestant organizations. If we look outside of Christendom, there are countries that have devoted themselves to Sharia law, or the code of law which governs Islam. And even in the countries in which Sharia law is not fully subscribed, Islam is the dominant religion, and it is more than intolerant of any other beliefs. In fact, all other religions are thought to be evil and are heavily persecuted. These states either tacitly approves of such persecution or merely turns a blind eye. In India, the religious laws also tend to dominate in many provinces, and like Islam, they are also extremely intolerant of other beliefs, especially true Christianity. The kings of the earth, those spiritual rulers over territories of mankind, have committed acts of immorality with her. They've not only permitted her to operate in their territories, but they also actively participate in her sexual deeds by encouraging the establishment of religion as a way of life. And it's largely been done by force, by the strenuous effort of the harlot, by forcing the people to obey and submit, or else. They have emotion. And the kings of the earth who have been committing acts of immorality and have been living sensuously with her will in the future weep, and in the future choose to lament over her when they now may see the smoke of her burning. It is odd, but these fallen angelic beings, the kings of the earth, have a very human-like emotional response to this whole situation. We typically do not think of angelic beings as having, much less expressing emotions. Not sure why, but we just don't. Ironically, since angelic beings were created before humanity, perhaps our emotional constitution is actually angelic-like and not the other way around. But then again, God expresses the full plethora of emotion, and since He is our creator, the emotional constitution of both the angels and mankind are truly patterned after our creator. They will weep. Weeping will be an automatic emotional response to the judgment of the harlot. They will also choose to lament or mourn her demise because of what they will be losing. Her immorality provided them with a great platform to enjoy the adulation of mankind, a pleasure that goes beyond that provided by their rule over humanity. They know. In the future, they will weep, and in the future, they will choose to lament. But until that day, they will keep the pleasure going as long as they can, even though they now may see the smoke of her burning. And even though they are now saying, woe, woe, the city, that great Babylon, the city, that mighty, the city, that great Babylon, the city, that mighty. Perhaps these kings of the earth have prophetic sight, and they can now see that this angel, or what this angel has been showing John, the future destruction of this woman. Perhaps they see the way the 10 horns and the beast will cause her to being desolate, and will in the future make her naked, and will in the future choose to eat her flesh, and will in the future burn her up with fire. Then again, it's all been prophesied, and maybe they are students of prophecy. Whatever manner through which they gain their knowledge, it seems they are aware of her impending doom. But they will continue to indulge in her apostasy as long as they can, and they will put off their weeping and lamentation until they are confronted with that 1 hour in which her judgment has come. Stand at a distance. Because they know the outcome of her dealings, and they fear participating in her torment, the kings of the earth have been standing at a distance from the harlot. In so doing, the kings of the earth prove to be far wiser than the people of God, who've been given the warning to flee from her. They, the kings of the earth, keep backing off slowly, whereas believers keep clinging to her for their very lives. These kings of the earth are true opportunists, the ultimate politicians of the earth. Like all good politicians, it is their nature to distance themselves from trouble. They are players, and they're constantly aware of which way the wind blows. When the wind changes direction, they stand off and choose how to survive, how to maintain their control, and how to get on the winning side. They are not loyalists to the great harlot. They just use her so they can enjoy her immorality. Practically, their backing away from the great harlot could explain why, except for Islam, which is governed by the God who is destined to rule for only a short time, we have seen the world become more secular and far less religious. The winds of change have been coming, and the gods of religion, including all the various gods who mimic Jesus, are being replaced with the gods who inspire our worship of the earth, which explains all the environmental madness, and others which inspire the worship of self, experience, and feelings, which explains all the political madness. The winds of change are coming. The great harlot is losing ground. It's as if she is already burning. It's a bit funny the way the Spirit undresses these kings of the earth, so we all know their true political and spineless nature. The double woe. These kings of the earth are now saying, woe, woe, the city, that great Babylon, the city that mighty. The city, that great Babylon, the city that mighty. The entire phrase is parsed, utilizing both the nominative and the vocative case. This explains the repetition and the power behind the expression that is not included in our translations. There are 5 references to this great city in Revelation 18, and three of them incorporate a similar use of both the nominative and the vocative, creating a repetition and enhanced expression intended to wake us up and cause us to pay attention to what the Spirit is saying. Further, each of these 3 times follow the lament, woe, woe, an expression which captures both the spiritual destruction of this great city as well as her physical destruction, connecting us 5 times the number of grace to this great city, with 3 of these references, the number representing perfection, being repeated and emphasized and connected to the lamentation, woe, woe. The Spirit is wanting us to understand that religion is not a trivial matter, that we cannot and must not just brush off all these warnings and commands. There is a lot of desire for this city, both in the spiritual realms, but also, as we'll find out, in the physical realms. We must not excuse our desire for the great harlot or act as if this is speaking to someone else and not to us. We must not think that she does not exist in our church or our fellowship or deep within our own hearts. She is there. In the Greek, there are also an excessive number of pronouns, the and that, which makes it read awkwardly in the English, but which puts a great amount of emphasis on the components of this statement. 3 nouns, city, Babylon, city. 2 adjectives, great, mighty. 4 pronouns, the, that. Reading this through the lens of the code, with 3 being the number representing perfection, and 2 being the number representing division and witness, and 4 being the number expressing God's creative works, from one end of the creation to the other, covering the entirety of God's creative works in both the spiritual and physical dimensions, this perfect gathering place of community, the city, for the people of God, representing the deepest form of spiritual apostasy, Babylon, causes by force, mighty, division with the true people of God. It establishes a monumental, great witness, capturing those who are enthralled and captured by the great harlot. This great city, the harlot, is everywhere. She is powerful, she is seductive, she is smooth, and she has captured the hearts, minds, souls, and bodies of those in the household of God, those who have not heeded the command to come out of her. And she has won over the kings of the earth who, though they stand at a distance with their tails tucked, they have loved to participate in her immorality. And they are saddened by her demise. They know that a great source of their power, wealth, and control will be stripped away from them. Hence the emotional outburst, woe, woe. Woe, woe, the city, that great Babylon, the city that mighty. The city, that great Babylon, the city that mighty. In 1 hour. For in 1 hour, your judgment has come. The Greek word translated hour can mean a literal hour, but it is also code which speaks of a time or a season. For example, John told us that it now is the last hour. And as you have heard, that Antichrist now shall choose to come. And he said that a long time ago. Prophetically, an hour speaks of a designated or fixed period of time, and not 60 minutes. To make this clear, the phrase, your judgment has come, is in the aorist active indicative. and it is not in the future tense. The hour of judgment has come upon the harlot. It is not something we are waiting for, and it is certain, a statement of fact. God has determined it to be, and there is no altering this reality. This is also her 1 hour. There will not be another judgment of this woman, nor will there be another harlot to deceive the peoples of the world. This is her single one-time judgment, a judgment in which she will be reduced to mere smoke and ashes. In summary, the harlot has come under judgment, and the kings of the earth know it and are extremely worried about what is happening. They see her power gradually fading as God systematically reduces her ability to provide for the kings of the earth in the way they've come to expect. Practically, the influence of religion in this world continues to decline, and with it, so too does the adulation and worship of these kings of the earth. So they slowly back away and distance themselves from this woman, as they do not want to be caught in her judgment. The merchants of the earth. The focus now shifts from the kings of the earth to the second group who mourn the harlot's demise, the merchants who have serviced this woman. Just a fair warning, like the previous passage, there are multiple code changes, but the overall view is that this is happening now. There are a couple of items that point us back to the past and a couple of things that point us forward to the end times, but we must not miss all that is happening in the now. Revelation 18, verses 11 through 17. And the merchants of the earth now weep and now mourn over her, because no one now buys their cargoes anymore. Cargoes of gold and silver and precious stones, and pearls and fine linen, and purple and silk and scarlet, and every kind of citron wood, and every article of ivory, and every article made from very costly wood, and bronze, and iron, and marble, and cinnamon, and spice, and incense, and perfume, and frankincense, and wine with olive oil, and fine flour, and wheat, and cattle, and sheep, and cargoes of horses, and chariots, and slaves, and human lives. The fruit you long for has gone from you, and all things that were luxurious and splendid have by choice been destroyed from you, and men will no longer in the future find them. The merchants of these things were being made rich from her, will in the future choose to stand at a distance because of the fear of her torment, now weeping, now mourning, now saying, "Woe, woe, the city, that great one, the city, that great one, who chose to having been clothed, in fine linen and purple scarlet, and caused to having been adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour such great wealth has been caused to be laid waste." There are 3 indices in this passage that give us an understanding that these merchants of the earth are likely the angelic entities that function behind the scenes, empowering their human avatars, the human merchants of religion. Number 2, the Spirit makes an intentional distinction between these merchants of the earth and men. When certain items are no longer available to the merchants of the earth, men will no longer in the future find them. Number 3, the Spirit utilizes the code such that he sends us to the past, the present, and the future, and incorporates all of it as he captures not just the events, but the emotional response to the events. And the merchants of the earth now weep and now mourn over her, now weeping and now mourning, now saying, "Woe, woe." Yet at the same time, we're told that they were made rich by her, and no one now buys their cargoes anymore. And they will in the future choose to stand at a distance because of the fear of her torment, which is expressed as this ongoing state of being. These merchants of the earth are likely immortal, and that their lives are not bound to time in the way human lives are bound to time. They have a spiritual view of events, such that every moment of now, they now weep and now mourn and are now saying, "Woe, woe." Because though they have prospered from being in business with this woman, they know her demise is soon, and so they lament. If this is referring to humans who are becoming rich, for example, in the heyday of religious fervor, it's unlikely that they would be lamenting her demise. They don't have an expanded view of events, as they are limited to time. It's more realistic to assume that they would be so enamored with their, quote, blessings from God, and so caught up in the revelry of the moment, as humans tend to do, because they see this world through a temporal lens and not an eternal lens. They would be rejoicing and not lamenting. But these merchants of the earth know what is coming, and so they now weep and now mourn. Oddly, there seems to be an economy that works in the spiritual realms and then plays out in the physical realms through human avatars and institutions. The Revelation has helped us understand that all things are initiated from the spiritual realms and then find their place in our physical realms, and this market of religion is no different. This is speculation, but with all the imagery of clothing and adornment and wealth, perhaps the functioning of our world and our desire for nice things and the adornments that make us special are mirrored in the angelic realms. We have learned that the angelic beings each possess different glory, strength, and beauty, which sets them apart from one another. Perhaps they too desire and possess different adornment that is fitting for their place in the spiritual realm, the spiritual marketplace. The merchants of the earth make their livelihood by essentially retailing religion to the populace. This then plays out in the physical realms through our merchants of religion, our churches, our media outlets, our bookstores, our religious colleges and seminaries, our ministries and outreach programs, and every organization that is involved in merchandising or supporting the merchandising of religious product for monetary gain. Often this is marketed through the idea of spreading the gospel to the world and spreading the knowledge of Christ, but it is merchandising nonetheless. In the same way that the beast, the destroyer, is imaged as one and the same as his kingdom, which is also referred to as the beast, so do these merchants of the earth cross over with their human avatars, such that it's hard to make a distinction between the two. What the merchants of the earth do, the merchants who are in the earth, their human and institutional avatars, follow suit. Therefore, to make understanding this passage a little easier, any reference to merchants should be understood to refer to both the merchants of the earth, who are working in this economy of religion, and to their human and institutional avatars, who physically engage in the merchandising of religion. We will get to the cargo, but consistent with this 1 hour of judgment that has come upon the harlot, weep, mourn, and buys are all rendered in the present active indicative. This means that it is all happening in our now, and being rendered in the indicative, there is no doubt or question. It's a statement of fact. This means it was happening in the now of John's time when he received the revelation, and it is happening in the now of our time. The merchants of the earth now weep and they now mourn, for their business is even now taking a huge economic hit. Again, with perhaps the exception of Islam, the merchants of religion have seen the world become more and more secular. This has impacted their pocketbooks, which is the reason behind their weeping and mourning. Their stated concern may be wrapped up in the spreading the gospel, but their apprehension is over the loss of revenue. People simply are not buying their product the way they did in days gone by. For the spiritual entities and their human avatars, this means their glory and their ability to control the populace is diminished. Consider that Europe is now considered to be post-Christian. Likewise, America, which has been one of the most religious countries in the world, is also embracing a post-Christian identity. The decline in religious activity is shocking. Christianity is being wiped out of the American culture. Every denomination has experienced reductions in followers. By way of example, according to the Pew Research Center, in 1976, 91% of the population in the United States claimed to be Christian. Yet by 2022, only 64% made this claim, with 1/3 of those who were Christian in their childhood leaving the religion by age 30. The financial impact of this shift is more than significant. The cargo. Now, regarding the cargo which the merchants sell, the items are, well, they're somewhat antiquated, but we'll try and make sense of it all. There's gold, silver, jewels, pearls, fine linen, purple cloth, silk, scarlet cloth, all kinds of scented wood, all kinds of articles of ivory, all kinds of articles of costly wood, bronze, iron, and marble, cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine, oil, fine flour, wheat, cattle, and sheep, horses, and chariots, and slaves, that is, human souls. All these items represent material that was used and is used in religious services all over the world. Some of them are for sacrifices, for example, the animals. Some of it is for adornment to ensure that the places of worship and those who lead the worship are adorned in the right level of extravagance and opulence that is considered by many to be fitting of a temple of the Lord and of a servant of the Lord. We have all seen images of the ancient cathedrals as well as some of the mega churches of today. The money that went into their construction and adornment is mind-numbing. And the personal residences of those who run these ministries are equally remarkable. Some of these items are used to create a serene place of worship that is soothing to the senses. It helps convey a solemn and holy feeling. Some of these items are for the sheer pleasure of those who run the institutions of worship. Some are to provide the requisite labor to ensure that all the work gets done. With the amount of money that has been spent in the religious economy, we can understand why these merchants are now mourning and are now wailing over the harlot's destruction. They have made a killing off her religious enterprises. In the past, the laborers worked for the church, and they were in essence slaves. The merchants would ensure that the church had the necessary resources to not only complete construction, but to ensure that everything ran as it was designed. Accordingly, some of these items are for transportation. In those days, it was chariots, horses, and cattle. And in our day and age, it's nice cars, bulletproof cars, planes, boats, helicopters, and so on. Then we add in all the money spent on Christian education, books, manuals, equipment, housing, medical care, etc. The amount of commerce that surrounds religion is simply unbelievable. Then there are the slaves, or human souls. In times past, slaves were used to complete various buildings and other projects. And it's not so different today. The merchants, whether it is schools, colleges, ministry, training groups, etc., still need people to serve to accomplish the calling and their respective ministry vision. And though some people are paid, there are many more who serve because they've been afforded an opportunity by the merchants to be involved in ministry and to serve the Lord. Without these human souls, most churches and parachurch groups would not be able to effectively carry on the work of the ministry. The merchants need human souls who have hook, line, and sinker bought into the harlot's agenda. And these servants, slaves, ministry leaders want nothing more than to be called upon by leadership to serve the Lord. It is a sick, codependent relationship. These people, these human souls, are so busy serving the Lord that they do not even consider that they should only be doing what God wants them to do and when He wants them to do it. Sadly, they love the harlot, and they will fight for her system, and most likely, they will die in her system. The lust. The fruit you long for has gone from you, and all things that were luxurious and splendid have, by choice, been destroyed from you, and men will no longer in the future find them. The word translated long for is oddly a noun and not a verb. And it is tied to the notion of lusting for something that is forbidden. The idea is that the souls of the merchants of the earth have become lustful. And so, yes, they do lust, but they lust because they live in a state of lust. Hence the use of the noun. Lust defines them. The fruit, singular, that the merchants get from this woman, and which has solidified their hearts in lust, is all that flows from the delusion that the harlot mixes into her wine. Power, control, honor, influence, wealth, productivity, validation, respect, and purpose, community, acceptance. This fruit has departed from them, rendered in the aorist active indicative. The shift has already happened in the spiritual realms. Then with the jump to the future tense, this change will, in the future, work its way into the physical realms, such that men will no longer, in the future, find the fruit and all that is luxurious and splendid. Destruction by choice. And all the things that were luxurious and splendid have by choice been destroyed from you. The word translated as luxurious literally just refers to fat or grease. And the word translated as splendid refers to something that is radiant, like a lamp or a torch that shines bright. The idea is that all that is sumptuous or decadent, and all that is bright and which attracts people to its light, has not just passed or departed, but is literally chosen to be destroyed. Most of your translations say something to the effect that they have departed, gone away, left, or passed away. But the Greek word literally means to destroy, which has different implications than something that departs. The Greek word apolumi is the root word from which Apollyon, or Apollyon, the destroyer, is derived. Therefore, it should be translated as destroyed and not deported. What these merchants of the earth loved and enjoyed has been destroyed by choice, and men, who are the merchants and consumers in the earth, will no longer in the future find them. The Spirit has revealed in this passage and in multiple other instances that all things in the spiritual realm are sentient and have choice. As odd it may seem to our understanding, in the spiritual realm, all things are living, even that which is merely described as being luxurious, sumptuous, and splendid or bright. And all things at some point exercise their right to choose. The spiritual realms are a very odd place indeed. Think of the implications of this statement. There is coming a time, and it has already begun, where pastors, priests, Bible teachers, Sunday school teachers, and so on will no longer hold a place of respect and honor in our culture. They had their day, but their glory is coming to an end. All that was sumptuous, delicious, and bright, attractive, have by choice been destroyed and are no longer accessible by the merchants of the earth. And in the future, it will no longer be accessible to men, to the merchants in the earth, or to the consumers of religion. Betrayal. Revelation 18, verse 15 through 17. The merchants of these things were being made rich from her, will in the future choose to stand at a distance because of the fear of her torment, now weeping and now mourning, now saying, woe, woe, the city that great, who chose to having been clothed in fine linen and purple and scarlet, and caused to having been adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour such great wealth has been caused to be laid to waste. Like the kings of the earth, these merchants are not actually loyal to the harlot. They just use her like one uses a prostitute. Sure, they love the power, control, honor, influence, wealth, productivity, validation, respect, etc. that they have received from her. They were made rich, but they will not stand with her. In the future, they will stand far off and watch her destruction. Now, this scenario is a bit different from that of the kings. The kings of the earth have safely distanced themselves from the harlot. Remember, it was rendered in the perfect tense. But the response of the merchants is presented to us in the future tense. Therefore, unlike the kings who keep an eye on the political and spiritual climate and back away as soon as they see trouble, these merchants will keep milking this harlot for her riches right up and to the very end. But when that end arrives, they will back away and watch her demise from afar. They will want nothing to do with it. The fear of her torment terrifies them. Therefore, like the kings of the earth, they will also get in line with the beast, and they will distance themselves from this woman, even though emotionally they are distraught. The merchants of the earth, they will weep and lament. The fascinating thing is that even now they are weeping and mourning aloud, and even now they are saying, woe, woe, the city, that great one, who chose to having been clothed, in fine linen and purple and scarlet, and caused to having been adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For in 1 hour, such great wealth has been caused to be laid waste. Both weeping and mourning, as well as saying, are rendered in the present active participle. This is another indication that this harlot is even now being judged, an ongoing judgment which puts her dealers in a state of distress and torment as they see her power and control, and therefore the great treasures she can offer them diminish with each generation. The scene is almost humorous. The harlot lives in total denial and believes she'll be a queen forever. She believes that her various concoctions of religious delusion will always rule the kings and the peoples of this earth, whereas the kings of the earth who have slept with her and her religious dealers, the merchants, know that Yahweh is systematically removing her power base. They know her end is coming. They see it all, but she is blinded by her own sensuality and arrogance. Thus, we have the amplification of their emotional state. And like the kings, the merchants also utter a great lament. Woe, woe, the city, the great one, who chose to having been clothed, in fine linen and purple and scarlet, and caused to having been adorned with gold and precious stones and pearls. For one hour, such great wealth has been caused to be laid waste. Each of these emphasized statements are parsed and rendered in both the nominative and vocative case. Two woes, one for their losses in the spiritual realms and one for their losses in the physical realms. The merchants simply cannot believe what they see. The woman had it all. She controlled the market on religion, and their opportunities to preside over humanity were all created by her. She is the city, that great one. No one would have thought that she could fall, much less fall so dramatically. She had power, control, wealth, influence, opulence, splendor, style, and she had the masses. Every nation was drunk with her wine. She chose to having been clothed. It was her decision, her path. She put on the garments of religion. She had the kings of the earth in the palm of her hands, and as a result, was caused to having been adorned. She needed to look like the great city, that great one, so they honored her as such and adorned her with gold, precious stones, and jewels. But the Lord has been judging her as strong, and his purposes prevail. So much so that he uses the beast and the 10 demonic spirits as tools, and he strips everything from her in one designated hour. What is unfathomable about this story is that these merchants of the earth, those who trade and deal in the business of religion, seem only to care about the loss of their radiant fat and the brightness or attractiveness of their ways, the power, control, honor, influence, wealth, productivity, validation, respect, etc. The merchants thrive by retailing religion to the populace, and once their means of trade is threatened, they stand back in horror. The spirit is clear. These merchants care about one thing and one thing only, what they are losing in this judgment. And this is the reason Jesus said, "No one can now serve two masters, for you will in the future hate one, and in the future love the other. You will in the future choose to be devoted to one, and in the future despise the other. You cannot now be caused to now serve both God and mammon." The word mammon is of Aramaic origin, and it expresses wealth personified. It pictures the arrogance, confidence, and avarice that tends to drip from those who possess great wealth. And when Jesus used the word love, he used the Greek word agapo, which derives from the root word agab, which means to breathe after or to love sensuously. The merchants of the earth and their human avatars have loved the harlot with passion, and they have profited greatly from her. And though they trade in this world of religion, they hate and despise God, for their hearts have never been bound to the message that they have been spreading. They've never been transformed by the gospel of Jesus Christ. They just use the gospel as currency, and Christianity and religion at large as the marketplace. And this marketplace has been extremely profitable for all. Let's stop here in our next podcast, pick up with the professionals and the passengers. I'm glad you tuned in and have been ready to listen. To get a free download of the full written transcript with all the scripture references footnoted, please go to threshermediagroup.com. That is THRESHER mediagroup.com. This is Steve with Thresher Media Group. When you're ready to listen, tune in.